Good evening, everybody, and welcome to snowy New England in the virtual Friday Dyer literary series. And I'm really excited to have my friend and guest tonight, Dr. Paula Perez. And Dr. Paula Perez's book is a wonderful book called The 49-Year-Old Virgin, which she's going to read from. And we're going to have a Q&A session with her. But first, let me do the bio thing. So here's her book, just in case. And Dr. Paula C. Perez is an educator, leader, youth pastor, pastor's wife, speaker, and writer. She's committed to equipping and challenging people to live life triumphantly, especially in their relationships. Currently, she lives in upstate New York with her husband. Together, they are Symbis. Is that correct?
That is
Symbis.
correct. Stands
Certified
for saving your marriage before it starts. That's what it stands for.
Yeah, have it before it's too late.
Yep.
Simba certified coaches, working with singles and married couples. And to learn more about Paula, go to her website, and her website is drpaulacperez.com. And so without anything else from me, I'm going to turn it over to Paula and her book.
Well, thank you all. It's so good to be here. I'm excited to be in Tim's space. I've been here a couple times before, but it's good to hear. Can you all hear me? Yes, we're good? Okay, good. As Tim said, my book is entitled The 49-Year-Old Virgin, and it is a book that I just couldn't get away from. I'm an educator by trade, and my dad would often ask, well, why are you writing about that subject? And I could not let it go. So now that the words are on the page, we may be able to jump into some other areas. But at the age of 16, I made the decision not to have sex until I got married. What I couldn't possibly know is that journey would last 33 years. 33 years, yes. I got married when I was 49. And the book basically shows my journey. Because it's a memoir, I also share some information from my family's background, which is very different from my own. For instance, I have a grandfather that when he was 16, he had 3 children with a 4th on the way. And he was not married. So very different lifestyles, but I show how through God's grace, all of our lives were transformed and how I was able to make this journey. So the passage that I'm going to read on this evening is taken from a chapter entitled So Naive. So Naive. So this, to set it up, I have just gotten onto my college campus. I went to RPI, which is an engineering school in Troy. The summer before, I had gone there in a program and was experiencing what it was to be an engineer. As a result, we then decided that's the college that I was going to go to. I met a lot of upperclassmen while I was there that summer. So the story picks up shortly after I'm dropped off on campus for my freshman year in college. And again, this is from the chapter entitled So Naive. After hugging my parents and each of my siblings, we said our final goodbyes. As soon as they left, I put up my clothes and left in search of my friends. I quickly connected with upperclassmates that I had met the previous summer: Tony, Peter, Elaine, Melody, and Shay. Less than 1% of the student body was Black, so we clung to one another for support. Instead of the school student union, we hung out at the radio station and our unofficial Black student union. This was a house off campus. It was our space, a place where we did not have to perform. We could let our guard down and be our authentic selves. In this judgment-free zone, we could take off our mask and get off the stage. It was safe. My first 5 months on campus I didn't attend church. I think I was trying to exert myself as an adult. Like a lot of young people who grew up in our church circles, church attendance was one of the first things we rebelled against. Prior to going to college, I went to church 5 to 7 days per week. So my first act of freedom was to stop going. When asked, I said I attended Pillow Pentecostal, a cute way of admitting I didn't attend anywhere. It was a stark contrast to my life before college. The first couple of times, I really felt guilty. However, I soon pushed the feelings aside. When my mom wrote and informed me that the church was coming up for a fellowship service at St. John's, Elder Jack's church, I decided I better make an appearance. So about a month before my dad's church was due to come to Albany, I started showing up at St. John's. I wanted to make sure, if asked, Elder Jack and others could confirm that they saw me in services. I just hoped they wouldn't ask how many services. I was excited when Shay invited me over to his apartment. He was one of the guys I met when I was on campus the previous summer. The night started with a few of us playing games and watching TV. Soon the others left, leaving me alone in the apartment with Shay. Shay motioned for me to sit next to him on the couch. As we watched the movie, I laid my head on his shoulder. Shay put his arm around me and started kissing my earlobe. Then he moved to my neck. We soon went from watching TV to kissing on his couch. All of a sudden, he jumped up. You gotta go. You gotta go. What? Go home, Paula. I gathered my things and left. At the time, I had no idea what was going on. Now, I knew he sent me home to protect me. I think the Lord made him stop. Thank God he watches over widows and fools, for clearly I was in the latter category. The next evening, Student Affairs showed a movie on campus. A bunch of my friends decided to go. Why don't you come with us, Paula? Where? To see Richard Pryor's live in concert film. My eyes must have revealed my ignorance. I had no idea who Richard Pryor was. But before I could ask, one of my friends continued, "He's a comedian." It sounded harmless enough. I rationalized that since they were showing it on campus, it wasn't like I was really going to the movies. Growing up, going to the movies was off limits. I think it was the organization's way of keeping us from becoming polluted with the ways of the world. The only movies I watched were shown in church or on TV. You have to remember that when I was growing up, TV was not like it is now. There was no such thing as streaming services. We only had 3 basic channels: ABC, NBC, CBS, and, oh yeah, we did have WPIX, the local channel. The Honeymooners aired on that station. So I joined my friends. Let's just say my virgin ears were not ready for the dose of comedy he doled out. Don't get me wrong, I laughed so hard tears rolled down my face, but I also had moments when I felt very uncomfortable. I had no idea the movie was rated R. Note to self, you cannot handle R-rated movies. This experience made me recall a time when I was flipping through the television at night and came across a couple on a rooftop. The man hoisted the girl up on the wall and began thrusting himself into her. I couldn't turn the TV fast enough. Those 5 seconds are forever embedded in my brain. I believe that's when I realized I just couldn't watch those types of movies. Believe me, a lot of prayer and fasting was required too. After the movie, we headed to one of the dorms where they were having a party. As I started to pick up a glass of punch, Shay said, "Girl, don't drink that." With that, he took the glass out of my hand. "Why?" "It's spiked. It has alcohol." I was grateful how throughout my freshman year, God surrounded me with friends who looked out for me. Once again, Shay played the role of protector. Prior to this, I never even had a sip of alcohol. Even for communion, our church organization used grape juice rather than wine. I had no desire to drink. It was not appealing to me. I had no desire to light up a cigarette either. I guess the idea of putting something in my body that made me lose control or made me sick made no sense. I'm sure the fact that I never saw my parents with alcohol or cigarettes also played a role in my decision. They did not allow it in our house. By the time my maternal grandfather, Casey, he was not drinking anymore either. He gave it up when he committed his life to Christ. The Lord completely transformed his life. He no longer desired to drink or smoke either. I'll stop there.
Oh, thank you so much, Paula. That was great stuff. And so let's chat for a little bit. So you introduced the book. You said that, you made your vow at age 16 and it was 33 years. How impatient did you get in those 33 years?
There were definitely moments when I was very impatient. I have a chapter entitled "She's Thirsty," because every man that came by that I thought might be a potential mate, I was trying to get into him somehow, some way to make him notice me. So there was definitely a period of time, and it became harder when my younger brother got married. I mean, I was the oldest. I was the oldest grandchild on one of my parents' sides. So, you expect to go in order. When that didn't happen, it did stress me out. It did make me feel like, man, okay, when is it going to be my turn? So that's
Now, I've already read the book, but I'm going to give you some softball questions for people that haven't read the book. So did your impatience, you waited and you found a wonderful husband, but as you were getting a little impatient, were there any wrong choices that were close?
Oh my God, yes. I debated whether to share that passage or not, but I definitely met a bunch of frogs in my life that just were not the right ones. There is one gentleman who I found out, I went to visit with his family and found out that there was some domestic violence in his household. And shortly after that, he'd moved into a new home, and I had a baby brother that I brought with me. We went to the house to help him set up. And I got a phone call during that time, and he just assumed that the phone call was from a guy. The man raised his hand to strike me. And in the book, I said, he raised his hand and closed the chapter in my life. So there is no way I was going to tolerate that. So yes, I definitely met some. There's another point in the book where I was engaged to a gentleman, but did not have a ring. And that led to some really stupid decisions on my part. I don't know whether to share or what, but really stupid decisions.
You didn't buy a ring for yourself, did you? Wow.
He took me to a jewelry store. If you've ever seen Sweet Home Alabama,
Oh, yeah.
that was the scene. I was in the jewelry store and he said, "What ring do you like, Paula?" And I pointed to a ring. They took the ring out, put it on my finger. I was excited. The moment happened. We get to the cash register and he says, "Let me hold your credit card, Paula." And immediately I'm thinking, what? what did he just say? But I did not resist. I guess I rationalized, well, it'd be our secret. And at least I had the ring because we were supposed to have an engagement party a week later. It would be kind of hard without a ring. So I made all justifications. Although in my head, I'm saying this doesn't make sense. He told me he couldn't get to his money because his mother had something and it just did not make sense. But that didn't stop me from handing over my credit card.
It's like the person that forgets their wallet at dinner when you're out to eat and forgets it every single time.
Yeah.
There's a question on the board here. You don't need to read them. I'll ask them. Were you upfront with men? This is assuming probably men that you were dating, and others right away.
In most cases, I didn't feel like it was necessary to discuss because I made the assumption that the men had the same belief that I did, because I only dated men that said that they were Christian. So it would eventually come up, but I never felt the need to say, date me, but oh, by the way, we're not having any sex.
Now, when you were in your 40s, and it's amazing because you still look like you're in your very young 40s.
I am 61. Woo-hoo.
So was there ever a point that you thought it was too late, that you were never going to get married?
Definitely did. When I turned 45, I really went through I thought I was supposed to be married, but maybe I'm not going to. I actually saw a documentary called Soulmates. If you look it up on YouTube, you can still see it there. It was done by a producer out in Hollywood who was a very attractive Black woman. She was married, but she had all of these friends that were highly successful that never married. And in the documentary, they talk about the statistics that say that Black women are the most uncoupled women in the world. That was a downer. And then they went through and shared their experiences of why they thought they weren't married. And many of them talked about the struggle of realizing they were never going to become mothers. And for me, fortunately, that was never, ever a feeling that I had. My attitude was always, if I have sex, I will probably get pregnant the first time, because that's what happened with my mother. And then I was going to try to figure out somebody that could watch the kid from birth till about 5. Then they can bring them back home. Because I'm an elementary school teacher. I love little kids, but not babies. So I was never hung up on, I've got to have a child. And in the book, I actually talk about having a roommate that was born when her mother and father were in their 50s. So by the time she got to college, they were in their 70s, which now does not seem old at all. But back then in our 20s, she was always so fearful that if we got a phone call, that it would be someone calling to say something happened to one of their parents. And I just could not do that to a child. So yes, I definitely went through a season where I thought, okay, I thought I was supposed to get married, but maybe that's not the plan. And what I did, and I always did, my parents are pastors. I was brought up in a church. So, and my father, very community oriented. He was a manager at IBM until he dropped dead in our church. And I write about that in the book too. He literally dropped dead in the church. And then some things happened and I share that story. But because of the way that I grew up, I was always community focused, and I love children, not babies. I love children. So I was always doing things with kids. I started a community organization called the King's Kids, and I write about that in the book. I started out in engineering, decided to switch to teaching, and I talk about all of this, how in the educational program, they did not prepare me for the politics of teaching. I could handle the instruction. I could teach a lesson. I knew how to do that. But what I didn't know how to do is to deal with the adults. So I did not go ahead.
All politics.
Oh, all totally politics. So I went and worked at IBM for almost 10 years before I went back into education, but I poured my energies into young people. I did a lot with women's groups and things of that nature. So hope I
I'm
answered
gonna,
the question.
yeah, I'm gonna twist this question a little bit, but it's the same question. So before the book came out, what were your targeted demographics for the book, and what did it end up proving to be? Like, who were the actual readers who would buy a book about chastity?
I've really been surprised, and I'm not sure. I've had all different types of people buy the book. In fact, I just sent out another book for beta reader, and one of the guys that bought the original, a young man that I met somewhere, he just loved the book. So it has really appealed to several people in different demographics, but I wrote the book for young to probably 40-ish single people. Most of them were in the church. And I've really had a cross section. I've had Black, white, married, not married. I've even had kids. I had a parent send me pictures of her teenage children reading the book. So it seems to appeal to a wide range. I have a couple of nephews who didn't read the book until Christmas time. They're out in Burbank. One of them is 32 and he's a virgin. The other's 28 and he's still a virgin. But it was amazing to me. The one child, still children to me, they're 40 something years younger. But my one nephew, he read it on the plane coming from Atlanta to LA, read it on the plane. And as soon as he got off the plane, called me because he just couldn't believe how exciting a read it was. And he kept turning the pages. He couldn't stop. And that has been the review that I've gotten from so many people, regardless of their background, whether they go to church or not. It's been really fun hearing people, and I'm so blessed that so many people have taken the time to write me and say how impactful the book was, because it touches on more things than just the virginity. You know, I talk about manifestation of destiny with our words. So I share several stories when that happened, and even getting married the year before I got married at a women's retreat that I was running. And I went in there, and I talk about this in the book. I say, I felt like something was going to happen, but had no idea that it would happen as a result of words that I would utter. And at that retreat, I said, I'm going to be married next year. Wasn't dating anyone. There was no prospect. And I was. That happened November 2009. I was walking down the aisle December 2010.
So Barbara's got a question. Oh, actually, just let me make a little statement here. I am far from probably your target demographic. I mean, I lost my virginity again and again and again and again. And I just was curious about how your life was based on the title and how it all turned out. But moving on, Barbara asked, what is the best advice for a new writer starting their first book?
This group that I met, Barbara and Leanne and Tim in, there's a writing club that has been such a gift to me. So my first words of wisdom would be to find a community that you can trust your story to and freely share and request feedback. That's the type of environment that we have in the inner circle that Anna David created. And it has been very, very, very helpful. Number one, the accountability, being able to meet 5 days a week, that consistency of time was important. And the other thing I would say for me was setting the goals. When I turned 60, my birthday wish for myself was, I want to write this book before I turn 61. I finished 3 days before my 61st birthday. So
congratulations.
Community and goals.
You really hit goals. And let me tell you about how inspirational you are. 2 weeks, actually less than a week ago, we had a guest talk about, promotion and having trailers. And I just went to your website and you have a trailer up.
I've got
So
two.
how do you find the time to have action?
Well, it helps when you're retired, technically. I was a principal until 2018 at an elementary school. And I was really bivocational. My husband is also a pastor. So both of us were working another job. And I retired at the age of 55. I had the age, but I didn't have the years. So it was truly a faith walk because my pension was literally cut in half. I was making six figures and it's cut in half. But I felt that I needed to move. I could feel a shift in my life, that something new was on the horizon. So I was not working a 9-to-5 job. We have the church ministry, but not working as a principal afforded me a whole lot of time. So that's how I'm able to do all that I do.
So your experience as a motivational speaker and an educator, how does that help you out in promoting your books?
I'm not fearful of getting in front of people and speaking. I think that's a big part of it. It has been a challenge pushing myself all of my life. I have promoted other people. You know, I have an amazing family that have done tremendous things. I'm a lot of stuff. So that's the hardest part for me, talking about myself. But I was matched. My husband is a salesman by trade, and he does a lot of the work for me, which has been great. He's very outspoken and doesn't mind pushing his wife.
So you also are a counselor, free marriage counselor with Christian living tips for single and married couples. Now, the single couples, do you advise no sex until after marriage? And if they've already had sex, what do you say?
I don't. The approach that we take, we provide them with an inventory and an assessment of where they are in their relationship. And it's not about me. It's not even about my beliefs. It's about helping them to get on the same page with their beliefs. So it's a problem if the girl doesn't want to have the sex, but the guy does. That's something they need to work out. So I don't push my beliefs on them. And the way we do it, this assessment that we give them actually spits out about an 18-page report, and it allows us to walk through the various areas. So sex is certainly one of the areas that we discuss in our counseling sessions, but it's about their sex life, not mine.
So say, has anyone ever read the assessment and broken up?
Yep. And that's the hope. That's you want them to break up before they put the dotted line on the paper. It is much less painful to break up before you say I do than it is after. So yes, I think that's the purpose. And we say to them, our job is to try to break you up.
So have you counseled some of my ex-girlfriends then? Karen's got a question. How did you know the man you married was the right one for you?
I surrounded myself. One of the things I didn't talk about, and I guess I could have read that too, but when I made the decision at 16 not to have sex, it was in a very corporate setting. I was at a Christian conference, and at the conference, the speaker asked everybody, fathers, will you commit to watch over your children as they go through this process and to be a part of it? And children, will you allow your parent to do that? And I did that. My father and I actually signed a contract that said that he would be involved. So every gentleman that I was ever in relationship with had to go through my father first. And I think the lessons from my poor decisions helped me to know what I needed and what was right for me. Because as I said, I bought a ring and I was engaged. Thank God I broke that off. But when it came to Mr. Right, it was amazing. There were people that didn't even know me that spoke a word indicating that my husband was coming, that we would be partnered and that the marriage would be successful. And I just believe that. And I think the counsel from all those around me, I have an awesome relationship with my parents. I have some really, really good girlfriends. And I have a younger brother that when I met the first guy that I was engaged to, said, no, he's not it. He's a mama's boy. And so the second time I listened to his opinion and I was able to get it. So I think in the counsel of many, there's wisdom, and it just worked out. It's been great thus far. I mean, every relationship you're going to have ups and downs, but I have married my purpose partner.
Last question. Now, I grew up a Christian, and I was always taught to be kind and help people lesser than yourself and follow the model of Jesus. So now Christianity seems to be a political voting point. Where have we failed?
Because it's become about religion and not relationship. I don't even like using the word Christian, really. I will say words like I am a Christ follower, because you're right, Tim. I don't want anything to do with that group of people that is hateful, that pushes violence. It is so anti-Christ. I really want nothing to do with that image. For me, it is about a relationship, and a relationship that is built upon love. The word of God says, you will know my disciples by the love that they have one for another. I'm not seeing love out of that camp for anybody but themselves. So no, I dismiss that, don't want any part of that. Again, like I said, for me, it's about being a Christ follower. And it's not even about me changing. If God is going to transform a life, he's God. I think he can handle it. My job is to just share the hope that I have found in relationship with Christ, and to allow him to do the transformation of the lives. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah. Is it frustrating that the Christians don't rise up, or not rise up, that's a bad word, don't debate or counter the politicians? Or would that be considered anti-Christ to debate that?
I don't think that's anti-Christ, because you will see times in the Bible where Christ himself showed anger. There was a time where he walked into the church, into the temple, and there were all these people selling and distracting the women and the Gentiles, because they weren't allowed to enter into the temple because of that hierarchy. But what all of that chaos on the outside was doing was blocking the message from going forth, so that the children and the women and the Gentiles could hear the message. So he threw over the tables. Y'all get out of here. That is not the purpose. So I think the Lord, he wants us to show righteous indignation. And I try to do that through my vote. I have protested many, many times, even as a child. I grew up in the 60s. And even though I lived in the North, we still had situations where we couldn't eat at the counter and that type of thing. So even as a child, I remember marching with my parents. So we do things of that nature. And we try to educate our people of the importance of their vote and being involved politically.
Fantastic, and fantastic reading and appearance. Here is the book, and please check it out. And if you go to drpaulacperez.com, you'll find out more about Paula. You'll be able to purchase the book. You can be part of her mailing list and all sorts of things. And Paula is just really, really wonderful to talk to you in this way. And it's really been a pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time and space. Thank you all very much.
And people that are watching on the streaming service and Facebook, first of all, if you asked questions in there, I can't see them, so I apologize for not asking them. But if you'd like to be in the open mic now, feel free to use the Zoom link, and I'll gladly welcome you in. So thanks again, Paula.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Nice to see you all.